Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Wonder Series. It is Wonder Wednesday. What is the Wonder Series? I bet you're wondering, and that's exactly the point. I'm Denise Stiegel. I'm the host here at of the Wonder Series, and who that is supported and really underlined by Living Healthy List. So again, what is the Wonder Series? My goal here is to help you to look outside the box, to start to wonder what life would be like if you looked at it from a different perspective, if you opened your mind to the opportunities and the possibilities that are out there that you may not be seeing. They're there. You just have to open our eyes to them. So at the Wonder Series, every week we're here Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. Essentially, we're here to help you to start wondering so you can start living. My guest today is Brenda Carey. She is passionate about guiding people to energetically align with their heart's deepest desire. She's a holistic life health coach and yoga teacher, utilizing the wisdom of Ayurveda and meditation infused with energy healing to co-create healing and wholeness in the body, mind, and soul. She is the owner of Sacred Path Healing Yoga and Reiki and is the creator of Inspired Living, an online conscious holistic health program. She's also the co-host of the Be the Love podcast, and she is dedicated to raise the vibration of all of us humans on this planet. Brenda, thank you for being here. Welcome.
Thank you, Denise. I'm so excited to be here.
It's great to have you. You know, so many of us have heard about energy healing and energy medicine, and I'm always intrigued by how people bring this into their lives. So if you would share with us, how did energy healing come into your world?
Thank you for asking me that question, because it is truly one of my heart's desires, is to sort of clear up some of the illusion around energy healing. When I initially started, and this, my goodness, was over 15 years ago, with the tradition of Reiki, which is a Japanese tradition. Energy healing wasn't quite the buzzword that it is now. It is definitely entering just mainstream culture. And I think there's a lot of confusion. I'm like, well, what is it exactly? And even I have some of those questions. I'll read something online and be like, oh, I'm supposedly really knowledgeable, and this person's bringing in a whole different aspect of, it's commonly referred to as energy healing or energy medicine. Those are actually very interchangeable. And so I think even that clearing up is that sometimes those words are used simultaneously. So to kind of demystify this idea of energy healing, we have to look at that everything is energy. And I think we know that conceptually, but that also means our physical body movement is energy. Our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, that is also energy. This greater life force energy, which that's actually what Reiki means in a nutshell, is this universal life force. And we are connected to it. It flows through us, through every living being that there is. And so when we tap into this energy, and that I think is where the confusion lies, is how one taps into that ever flowing energy. And we can do that in so many different ways. There's different traditions, like the Japanese tradition of Reiki, traditional Chinese medicine, which we might know as more like acupuncture, acupressure. And then there's more modern energy medicine techniques that are coming down the pipeline. Donna Eden and her energy medicine technique that's a newer, more modern version, and other people are now contributing to these, I would say, more traditional. You might have heard of chakras. That comes from the more yogic tradition. And so I think the confusion is like, there's just a lot of different vocabulary for the same concepts and essence of what it really is. Hopefully that brings a little bit of clarity around this idea of energy healing or energy medicine.
Yes, definitely. And it's interesting because years ago, I got Reiki certified when I had my massage business.
Mhm.
And it's funny, I must not have paid attention to learn that Reiki was a Japanese modality. I just knew of it as an energy modality and never really thought of it beyond that. And I guess a lot of this, I never really think of, oh yeah, Chinese medicine, Japanese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine. For me, it's always kind of been in this energy field, so to speak. Like I just say energy medicine, and I guess maybe that's the phrase that I've always used. And so it's interesting that the words energy medicine and energy healing are used interchangeably, because to me they sound different. Like I always think, like energy healing, I think of this much more positive, and I think of like energy medicine, like there's something wrong, like the healing piece. So it's interesting that they basically kind of mean the same thing, energy.
Right, because we use medicine for healing and also kind of vice versa. So yeah, it's interesting how we have some maybe interesting beliefs about the word medicine, because that does come with its own stigma versus healing. And that, again, that's just kind of a personal preference of how we use our words. So I've just been more in tune to that, of how I'm using, like, I don't use the word Reiki specifically too much anymore. I'll use energy healing because I pull in different traditions that I did for myself and my own healing journey, and also for my clients as well, because as we know, not everything works for each person. And so we draw from different practices that really resonate with us to help us raise our vibration so that we do feel better.
So tell us a little bit about your story, how, energy medicine and all of these pieces came into your world.
I would love to share this story. This is something that I've learned to share because by nature, I'm a rather private person. And when I but when I was willing and felt ready to speak my story, I found that it helped so many people to know that they're not alone and that there's nothing wrong with them. So I was diagnosed with actually multiple digestive autoimmune conditions shortly after the birth of my second daughter. And typically, I did the traditional Western medicine side of treatments because I came from a family belief system that you do what your doctor tells you, don't question it, just follow it, it'll work. And so I did. And I went through rounds of antibiotics for the various digestive issues and other like proton pump inhibitors and just things that, is typical protocol of Western medicine. And after almost 2 years of going through rounds and rounds, it just didn't work, at least not for the long term. And so I found myself in this place of, now what do I do? Like, it didn't work like they said. And I'm not blaming by any means. I think they prescribed what they needed to that would maybe work for a lot of people, but it didn't work for me. And so I love how this podcast is called the Wonder Series, because I had to start to wonder what's possible for me. And it didn't look like the box that Western medicine tried to push me in. And I'm like, okay. And it was scary. I'm not going to lie. It wasn't like, oh, wow, I feel all this freedom and I get to explore. I was scared. I was like, I don't even know where to start. And I did already have a yoga and meditation practice. And so I really drew on that. I also started really focusing a little bit more inward because I had spent all this energy, emotional energy, looking outside of myself, whether it was to the next expert or the next supposedly perfect, diet or nutrition solution, or it was constantly this outpouring of my energy looking externally. Not saying that that's, not valuable at some point, but I had really not focused inward and said, well, what do I feel like I need? And so I began this process of doing regular yoga practice to feel my body again, because I was so stuck in my head most of the time. Sometimes I would forget I had a body and that my body was a great communicator. I mean, even though, yes, the digestive issues were painful, I'm not saying it was fun, But when I could start to look at those without judging them as bad or there's something wrong with me, and just being like, what's the message? Like, what's the message that's trying to be communicating to me through my gut, basically? And then brought on more of a mindfulness practice, like an inquiry practice. And that's when the doors opened and I started to bring in some energy healing practices. And initially they were just very simple, of like placing my hand over my heart, just breathing a little bit deeper, because so often we just don't breathe deep enough. And when we breathe deeper, our nervous system settles. We're able to think a little bit more clearly and just ask, like, what do I need in this moment? And just really tuning into that and breathing deep. And so often it would be something quite simple. And so the sort of message that would come to me oftentimes is, you're thinking like a sick person.
Ooh.
And I think this is key. And I think this is that, when you say, be open, I wasn't even aware that I was thinking like a sick person. And I don't mean that, in a judgmental way, but my whole day, I orchestrated my whole day based on the assumed digestive pain that I would have. And so that created a day assuming that I was going to be in pain. And just kind of think of how that sets itself up day after day, week after week. And so I slowly started shifting, and I started learning some acupressure point tapping and some other breathing techniques that fall into that energy healing category, channeling this life force energy, knowing and starting to slowly change that belief system that my body has its own innate wisdom. It really does. I've been focusing so externally that I haven't been really checking in within myself. And so this combination, this blending, as I call it, of holistic practices of yoga to embody, remember I have a body, breath work, mindfulness practice, really checking in and using some simple energy healing techniques. And I built this trust that I am a healthy person. Right now, my body is strongly communicating to me through my gut mainly. And so it began these just small shifts. And I started to think like a healthy person. And for me, that was just like the light bulb that went off, that I didn't even realize that I was thinking in what we'd say a lower vibrational state.
Right, because with that lower vibration, it's low vibration breeds low vibration, kind of that, negative thoughts bring more negative thoughts, positive thoughts bring more positive thoughts.
In energy healing, we say like attracts like.
Exactly.
And that goes on so many different realms, whether it's emotions, relationships, it's all energy. And to be aware of that is a huge opening of the box.
Absolutely. Opening the box, opening of the mind, because, you said something that so many of us people have said to me and myself personally, when you're struggling with something, physical, the first thing you think of is, let me go to the doctor, there's something wrong. I mean, I was dealing with a health issue a handful of years ago, which is why I started Living Healthy List, because I couldn't get good information. And, I wasn't struggling with what I was struggling with because my body was lacking, a medication. That wasn't it. There was something else going on. But we're so, it's so ingrained in us that, we have a problem, we take a pill. We feel sick, we go to the doctor. And obviously, medicine has its place.
Oh, sure.
My husband's a transplant surgeon. He has his place in somebody's life, but I think what many of us have gotten away from, and maybe it's at some stage in life, we're getting back to, like you said, is getting back to who you are and what is going on with you and your body, not so much between your ears.
Yes, very true. I think, like you mentioned, oftentimes when we feel something physical, we think, oh, there's something wrong with me. That was a huge subconscious belief that I had to work through. And again, this went back probably, I'm thinking probably from my teenage years. I think we all go through, adolescent trauma of some sort.
Yes.
And mine was deeply rooted into I'm not enough and there's something wrong with me. And I do think that was also part of my healing journey, was to question those very deep-seated beliefs, and then to work through those and clear those with some of the energy healing practices that I do. Because sometimes I know people say, oh, you just have to shift your mindset. And I'm like, easier said than done.
How do you do that?
Yeah. And so that's where the energy healing piece came in for me, because those were some really deep rooted neural pathways. Like, I think they might have even been generational. Came in through what I saw my mom, not blaming my mom, I love my mom, and even my grandmother and things like that. Like, those have just come down the generational pipeline. And so the different either acupressure points or from Reiki channeling in and connecting to that higher vibrational energy, and knowing that, yes, there is that greater wisdom and it is within and it flows through, every living being. And for me, really using those techniques to help shift out of there's something wrong with me, I need to be fixed, into my body knows, my body knows, and I can check in with that without judgment, without from a place of fear. And it's there, and to trust in that process.
I think when you say fear, I think when we don't feel well, when we think that there's something wrong, it's all from fear. Oh my God, what's wrong with me? And I'm gonna bring my mom into this one. I love you, Mom. When I was struggling with my health issue, I was asking her questions, kind of wondering, what did she go through? Does this sound familiar? Any piece of evidence that, I was going to be okay. This was fine. And she said to me, she goes, oh no, Denise, I think you really need to see your doctor. And, when your mother says that, you go, oh, okay, I better really run and see my doctor, because that even scared me more, thinking, oh my God, something was really wrong. Nothing was really wrong. It was just my body was going through what women's bodies go through. We go, up and downs with hormones. And, I think every 10 years in life, we're in a different place, mentally, physically, emotionally, hormonally.
Yeah. Yes, very much so. We go through seasons of life, and that's actually how the yogis call it. We are connected to nature, again, energy, and the different elements of nature, whether it's fire, earth, water, like we are all of that. We are a microcosm, a small piece of the big macrocosm. And when we shift our focus, seeing ourselves as a piece of that whole, it does shift our perception away from, oh, there's something wrong. No, I'd say there's something maybe out of balance. There's something that needs to be drawn attention to, that maybe I haven't in the past before. And that's what I really try to work on with myself, and also with my clientele, is like, where are those imbalances? And it's going to be unique, because we are all unique energetic signatures. And so it's going to look different. That's why one size fits all, nutrition plans or exercise plans don't work. They just don't. We have to tune in and say, okay, what do I need? And does that come from a place of love and kindness? And how do I create balance? If I am feeling fiery, whether that's emotional fiery or hormonal fiery or whatever that is, what cooling elements of the water can I bring in to help balance some of that fieriness? And that's all the fun play of Ayurveda, which is the yogi's version of a holistic medicine, or even energy medicine. And it does take some inner work. I tell people it's not easy. It's not kind of like you take the pill and it's gone. But I think it's fun, because the more I know about myself, and I love connecting with other people, that's the joy of, and also, how I was able to go through my healing journey. And it was many years. I'm not, trying to sugarcoat it. I was depleted of energy and just vitality. And when I did come around the other side to that, I learned so much about what I needed. And now I get to gift that to other people. And that continues that energetic cycle. What we receive we can also give, and from a full cup instead of a depleted, empty cup.
Let's talk a little bit more about energy and vitality, because I think it's so important for our audience. And most of our audience are women, and I always say, and those few wise men. We are living in a life in a time where, we're busy, go, do. And people seem to be okay. They're getting by. They're fine. And I don't know about you, but that sounds blah to me. I think we deserve more.
Yes.
So energy and vitality, how do we find that?
Yes, I would agree. The majority of people that come to me, the number one comment I hear is, I'm tired. I'm so tired. In fact, exhausted is a word I hear over and over. And then I'll just ask questions like, well, what does your day look like? How do you start your day? And it's usually with coffee, which is caffeine. It usually has quite a bit of sugar, which is also, it does temporarily boost our energy. And it's this constant doing, busy, even at night, when we may not be physically moving at night, but if we have our screens open and we're scrolling, that is high mental activity with blue light. We don't have time to go into that, but it's a lot of mental stimulation. And I am just here to call each one of us out, and this is myself included. We are not designed to be go, active, whether that's physically or mentally all day long. So we are constantly borrowing, I call it, from like our energy reserves. And we're borrowing, whether that's from the next sugar fix, caffeine hit, constant scrolling. And at some point, our reserves dry up and we're tired. And then that's when dis-ease enters in, whether, like for me, it was autoimmunity. For somebody else, it might be something more physical. So these are the consequences of not receiving rest. And so often people say, oh yeah, I rest, I chill out in front of Netflix every night for 3 hours. That's actually not full rest, because mentally we're still digesting and accumulating information. I'm talking about like true rest, like unplugged, disconnect. Maybe that's spending time outside in nature. It can be even as simple as breathing a little bit deeper. But that does need to be in a place of receivership. And so many, and women, like you said, and a few wise men, are constantly in this outpouring of giving. And that energy needs to be reciprocated. So I always ask many people, are you willing to receive? Because that's the energy from which rest comes from, like true rest. And so having abundant energy without borrowing from the next fix, if you will, comes from, am I willing to receive true rest? And what does that look like? It can be various things. It can be a bubble bath. It can be something where we, turn off our phone and actually put it aside. It's one thing to have it in a different room, but actually turn it off. That makes some people even nervous. But to know that this is what my body and my brain need to recalibrate and recharge.
It's funny. When you were talking about that, I'm like, yeah, I've been doing that lately.
We all do.
Because and Mark and I, so this time of year is amazing here in Minnesota. The weather's great. Best place to live in the summer is Minnesota, because it doesn't get that hot.
I might have to challenge you. I love Colorado. I don't know.
Yeah, you probably got your, okay, so you got me beat on it. Okay, so this is the best time of year to live in Minnesota if you live in Minnesota.
Yeah.
But because it's beautiful. I mean, I'm looking out my window and literally it looks like I live in a rainforest, because with the trees, it's gorgeous. And we spend a lot of time out in nature. But what I find we do very often is we have dinner, we come back to the house, we sit in front of the television, and then we've gotten into watching the Game of Thrones program before I go to bed. And kind of, I wonder in the last couple of weeks, I'm like, I'm not falling asleep as easily as as I used to.
Yeah.
So, I hadn't really thought about it because we don't watch a lot of television, but an hour of television before you go to bed probably is not the best when it comes to positive energy.
It is very mentally stimulating. And our brain needs darkness and rest. And I get it. In the summer season, we have more light naturally. And we are designed to be up more so often than in the more winter restorative season. That's a part of the seasons. But being out in nature, just listening to the sounds of the birds or the rustling of the wind, that is so calming. That is so calming for, the nervous system. One of the things that I do as a part of my meditation practice in the summer is I go barefoot in the grass. And that it's called earthing, but it's a very grounding practice. You can look it up. There's studies on how it reduces inflammation, but something so simple, 10 minutes standing barefoot in the grass, hopefully not with some kind of pesticides in the grass, but like natural grass, where we can really root down and feel those negative ions, help balance our energy.
Mm-hmm. These are great ideas to really restore that energy. And they aren't difficult. They're not things that, we have to really think about doing. Okay, maybe you have to think about turning your phone off. And I have to say, that's one thing. I read a book a couple of years ago, and it was like a 21-day, change your life in 21 days. And the first day, what it said was to take your phone before you go to bed, take your phone and leave it in another room. Sometimes I turn mine off, sometimes I don't. And I don't really think about it, but it's in the other room. And when I wake up in the morning, I don't look at the phone or turn on the television or anything for 1 hour until after, I've been up for an hour, then I can do it.
Right. And we have to make that an intentional practice. I look at everything as a practice, until it does eventually become a habit. But if we're not intentionally saying, you know what, I'm going to honor this quiet time in the morning or in the evening, whatever that is, and the phone gets removed from my bedroom or it gets turned off, whatever that is, like we'll say where our, attention goes, energy flows. And so we really think about, what do I want to create in my life? And you mentioned before, life just seems kind of like, oh, it's fine. Oh, it's blah. Well, what if your intention was, I get to wake up and I get to do this day and I get to do it with vibrancy and vitality? Then what choices would you make? That's where we really, fuel those practices that energetically align with our heart's deepest desire. Like, check in, what do you really, really want? And I know some people might say, oh, money, or oh, a certain relationship. Well, what if that were the feeling of abundance? Abundance, and whatever way it actually shows up, because it can show up in money if it wants, or relationship. But what would an abundant, energetic person, what would they do? What would they do? And can we, align our daily habits to what we most desire? And that starts the change. That starts the opening of a bigger perception of who we really are.
And you make the key point there is you get to choose to do that.
Yes.
That is such a big part of what I've always is kind of one of the pillars of success that I talk about. Eat real food. That's to me, that's a given. Make good choices, make good decisions. And then of course, be accountable to those. So I think what we're talking about when it comes to the energy and the life and the abundance and vitality, if we're eating real food, that's my piece, but making those good choices, all of those positive things that we are looking for in our life, whether it's feeling better, having more abundance, enjoying more vitality, and being more energetic, all of those things boil down to that one word that you just said, and it was choice.
Yeah, choice is so important, especially with so many people that feel like they don't, when they slip into victim mentality. And that is a dark place to be. I have been there myself, but that comes from a belief system. So again, go back, heart check in, like, where does this belief come from that I can't choose? And just be curious as to what comes up for you. And maybe that's something to work through based on, whatever traumas we might have had in our past, or feeling like we don't have choice. As a child, maybe you didn't have a choice, but as an adult, we can choose those things and align vibrationally, even like you mentioned, the food. Eat the foods that are, bright in color, that have vibration, that are whole foods, that's what you want to create in your life. It can be that simple, but sometimes it's just a habit. We just think, oh, this is just the way it is. But maybe not. Entertain the possibility that we could choose something different. And what would that look like?
Absolutely. And that's exactly why we're here, is to help people to wonder what that could be like. What would life look like? What would you do? Who would you be? I think to the core, we know who we are. We may not be acting like that person because we get so busy in the mom role, the this role, the nurse role, or whatever role that we play as women, and men too. I think a lot of men go through this too, but don't realize it as easily as women do, because women will just kind of go, oh, all right, something's got to give, where most men will just keep pushing, and that's not necessarily a good thing, because at some point everything breaks. And if you're pushing, you're constantly pushing, your body does, like you had said, your body has an innate wisdom. And if we keep pushing and stop wondering what life could be like if it was a little different, if we looked at things differently, how much more we would enjoy life.
Yes, I've definitely learned through my own journey. I must, it's not a maybe, I must prioritize self-care. And I know self-care is kind of a watered down word right now, but the things that bring me, back into balance, I have to put those in my calendar first. And that's been very hard as, a business owner. And I'm also a mom of 2 daughters as well, but they are seeing me. My daughters are seeing me say, look, this is my self-care practices. Those are non-negotiable. I do have a meditation practice every morning. I do some type of movement every morning. Those are non-negotiable. And I carve out that time. And then I have an evening routine that I do, like gratitude journaling and things that help me align to those other things. And obviously family also comes first. And my business fits in within that bigger framework. And I think so often as women, we're like, okay, we just got to get all the things done, business, family, and then what's ever left over, if there is any time left over, then I'll do that little bit for me. And I'm like, nope, oops, backwards. Like,
I'm so glad you said that.
We got to put the self-care in first. And it's not selfish. I know that's kind of cliche, but it is non-negotiable and necessary. And it's interesting, like initially I was kind of nervous putting that first, because I'm like, what if I don't have the time? What if I don't have time to get all the things done? And I'm like, what ended up happening? When I took care of myself, I had much better focus, more clarity on what was important, what I could say no to. Because goodness knows I said yes to things way too much. But I felt more comfortable in just getting the things done that really needed to get done. And it all fell into place. So just saying, I know it's challenging to like, oh my gosh, what happens if I put myself first and I run out of time? And I'm like, surprisingly, I had plenty of time.
I'm so glad you say that, because that's one of the things I talk about quite frequently, is, calendar management. Manage your calendar so the calendar isn't managing you. And that's, that kind of comes from my business background. Back in the day, I was a corporate meeting planner. So I was always looking at a calendar and a schedule. And I've gotten to a point where every year I plan my life literally a year in advance. But the big stuff, I know when we're going to be on vacation. I know, I plug in people's birthdays. I plug in my workout time every morning, 7:30. This morning I went to a meeting. So my workout time, I literally had to move it on my calendar. It'll be at 4:00 today, because that's the first.
But it's on your calendar. And that's what I encourage people. Put it on your calendar, put your like quiet time, whatever your meditation, whatever it is, on the calendar, whether it's handwritten, digital, that way our brain will acclimate to, oh, this is a priority and this needs to happen.
Mhm. And again, once you make you a priority, all of a sudden the energy that you need is there.
Yes.
Mhm. So I'm going to ask you this one thing to talk about, this one last thing. You and I were talking about this earlier, and this is your soul check-in practice. So we've been talking about practices and how meditation and everything specific to this, your soul check-in practice.
Yes, I do this throughout my whole day because I like to call myself a creative thinker. That can look into being very scattered and not being able to make decisions and getting caught up in, anxious thoughts. And I'm like, okay, I am way too much looking outside of myself for whatever it might be, the answer, solution to this. And I'm like, I need to draw that inwards.
Mhm.
So I always begin and end my day. And then anytime when I start to feel just out of sorts or imbalance, I literally place my hand on my heart and I find my own heart beating. And this is energy. And this is my reminder to myself that my heart beats at the perfect rhythm for me, just as it does for you, for your listeners. This is like that reminder that I don't have to make it happen. I don't have to say, okay, heart, beat at the right timing because, it's what you need to do. So I release control, which is a big thing. I release control. Oftentimes I close my eyes because goodness knows I look at a screen too much during the day. So I kind of like reduce that visual stimulation. I breathe a little bit deeper. And it's just this check-in of like, what do I need to know in this moment? And it's just that simple. And sometimes something will come to me and sometimes not, and that's okay. And oftentimes if something does come, it's usually something really simple, like you need to drink some more water, or you need to breathe a little bit deeper, go for a walk, or just something really simple. And if it's aligned with a loving action, then I know like, okay, that's what I need to do. So I do these like checking in with whether you want to call it your soul, spirit, inner self. I mean, you can call it whatever you want, but take those times throughout your day when you notice like physical tension in your body, when you notice you're not, just feeling out of sorts, like place a hand on your heart, find your heartbeat, make that your like reminder, like I don't have to control the world. I don't have to make it all the plates spin, and just do that check-in and ask yourself, what do I need in this moment? Or what do I need to know? And I think if we start doing that on a regular basis, expect miracles because we are walking miracles. I think we forget that. And to just expect these little miracles to show up at the exact right time. And because it's all in divine timing.
I love it. I was going to ask if you had any more advice, but I think I would like to leave it with what you just said because that was absolutely beautiful. Brenda, can you tell our listeners how they can connect with you, where they can find you, and anything else you'd like to share?
Yes, I love connecting with so many people. You can find me mainly on my website, which is sacredpathyogaandreiki.com. I do have a free gift. You can find it on my website. It's a short video course of journey to abundant energy. So we talked about before, if you are feeling just sick and tired of feeling sick and tired kind of thing, check that out. It's a free offering. It's 4 short videos of different simple practices you can do throughout your day before you feel like you have to go for the next cup of coffee and deplete the energy over time even more. So please check that out. I love offering that as a gift, especially to those of you feeling a little depleted. I am also on Instagram and Facebook. I spend a little time there. You can also find me as a co-host on Be the Love podcast. My co-host Stacy and we love having conscious conversations. And we are serious when we say our mission, raise the consciousness of humans and the planet. And we do that through just really interesting interviews of various people doing amazing positive impact in the world. And then Stacy and I also have conscious conversations on different topics that our listeners are interested in. So those are the places that people can find me. And yeah, so grateful to be on this show, Denise.
Well, thank you. It's been lovely. And I'm sure this is probably first of many conversations you and I will have one-on-one, face-to-face, hopefully sometime, and definitely here on the Wonder Series. Thank you for that generous, generous gift. I'm going to make sure all of that information is in the show notes. So everybody take a look there. And I'm going to tell you, everyone, I'm going to be downloading those videos because you can never have enough energy. You can never have enough positive practices in your life. So thank you, everyone. Brenda, thank you for being here and sharing your wisdom with us. Thank you to our listeners. Again, I'm Denise Stegall. I'm the host of the Wonder Series. We will see you next week, Wednesday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. Till then, I leave you with this, everyone. Healthy living, happy life. Have a great one.